Pikeville, everybody knew everybody else's business in a town like that. So Mark and Susan would meet up on a mountain overpass where nobody would run into them. And it was the kind of situation where, and she was on the make. She was definitely on the make. She decided, and I'm not denigrating her in the least, because I was very careful to make sure that the Susan Smith that I eventually got to know, she was dead, of course, came across in the book as a full-fledged human being with her own, faults, but her own goals and desires. And anyway, she wanted out of Pikeville. She wanted to go. Her husband was abusive, and she wanted to get out, but she had no skills to get out. She didn't know how to do it. She was running cheap drug deals, and she was involved in small crimes, but she had not a clue about how to do it. And Mark was her white knight. He was the she saw him as her ticket out of town.
Well, she also became friends with Mark's wife as well, right? I mean, Susan and Kathy also had a relationship.
Yeah, I said that, interesting, because I said that Kathy was assertive. Kathy was really pushy. I loved Kathy, but she was you could not if she set her goal. If she said something as a goal, she almost always did it. And her goal was to she hated Pikeville, hated it. And her goal was to get out of town. Kathy's goal as well was to get out of town. There was no receptionist. There was no secretary at the FBI office. And Kathy, being pushy, took it upon herself to involve herself in Mark's work. And she was a great help. I mean, it wasn't like she was a nuisance. But in that, she got to know Susan Smith. Now, Kathy always thought that she never thought that Mark was sexually involved with Susan. And Mark always told me, and I actually believe him, that the sexual involvement with Susan was pretty late in the game. But at any rate, Kathy got to know Susan, and Kathy is a helper. So she got to know her in long, I think, alcohol-driven phone calls at night when Susan would pour her heart out, and Kathy would say, "You can straighten up. You can do this. You can get yourself clean. You'll be able to get out of town." Kathy acted sort of as a mentor to Susan. And in Freeburn, where Susan lived, she was back and forth from Freeburn to Pikeville. Susan started to act a little bit like Kathy. She took Kathy as a role model. She began to speak differently. She had this hillbilly twang, but she started to affect Kathy's sort of Connecticut accent. And she had local people said she was putting on airs, but she was really just reflecting the influence of Kathy on her. So they were pals.
So that's really interesting to me, though, Joe, because again, it seems to me like Kathy's empath tendencies, her helper tendencies, mixed with maybe a little bit of Susan's ability to manipulate, and Susan had eyes for Mark, and so she reimagined herself into the persona that she felt would suit a relationship with Mark, which is what she feels that Kathy is that persona. So I'm going to be that person as well, and see if I can get there. Do you think that has any weight to it at all? Or am I just fishing in the dark there?
No, you got it. That's exactly how I saw it. It's exactly how it was eventually seen when the truth of this came out. Kathy Kathy was utterly confident in her marriage. She was deeply in love with Mark, in love with him. She never thought that, Susan told Kathy openly, I want this guy, and Kathy just sort of shrugged her off as being silly.
Susan would say that she wants Mark to Kathy?
She would say that, I love Mark. She would make it clear that she had her eye on Mark, and Kathy just shrugged it off. Kathy was confident. It's a dystopian environment.
Oh my goodness.
Act a little weird.
So she was making her intentions even known to Kathy, and Kathy
Kathy
blind eye.
I'm totally confident in it.
So was she telling?
Why would he go with her?
Oh my goodness. So was she telling people around town that she had these ideals as well?
Eventually she was, yeah. Susan talked a lot. But she was known for telling tales. Everybody who knew her, who grew up with her and knew her when she was young, knew that she was a fabulist. She told tales. She exaggerated things. She wasn't. You wouldn't call her a liar, although she was. She was just a teller of tales.
Uh-huh.
And she told tales about Mark, how she was going to marry Mark. And people were like, "Oh, that's Susan again."
So she's a married woman with children. She's going
Susan,
around. Yeah, Susan. I'm sorry. Yeah, Susan.
Yeah,
She's going around telling people around town that she's going to marry Mark. Mm-hmm. Does her? It's an open secret. It's not even a secret. Does her husband know that she's been saying this around town?
He certainly begins to suspect. Now I talked to him. He was of course the first suspect, but I talked to him when I researched the book, and his most important thing was that he had to tell me that he was better looking than Mark, and he was a good looking guy. His name was Kenneth, but he was troubled, and they had an abusive relationship, and
yeah, if all you care about is that you're better looking than the guy who your wife is going around town saying she's going to marry, all I care about is I'm better looking. Yeah, he's got issues, mental issues. Oh well, okay. Well, I guess you have that. You got that, Ken. Mm-hmm. Ken, if you're out there,
I'd give him that.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
And back in Pikeville, Susan had a reputation of somebody who would occasionally leave town for a period of time. She always made sure that her kids, in Freeburn, our kids had. It's the kind of place where people look after your kids. She had relatives. The immediate assumption is she's off on some sort of antic, maybe a drug deal or something, because she had done that previously. And time passes, maybe a month or so, and Susan's sister, whose name is Shelby, Susan and Shelby were sort of estranged. Shelby later tried to insinuate herself into this story as somebody who knew a lot more than she did know. What Shelby did know was that her sister was missing, and it seemed fishy. So Shelby makes a missing persons report. Now, nobody is extremely motivated to get to think of it here as a crime.
So her husband never files a report. Her husband never reports her missing. No. She is still married with children. It's her sister a month later who did. So that leads insight into what the relationship was like with her husband, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he is hauled in for when they eventually the cops figure, well, there may be they have no body, so they don't know there's a crime, but they figure, well, we gotta figure out what happened here. So they haul Kevin in, him being a pretty good suspect.
For sure.
Something happened, your wife is missing. What happened here? But he shows up so whacked out on drugs that the lie detector test is no good. But eventually they say this guy's just too goofy, and they kind of rule him out as knowing anything about her. That's disappearance.
That is absolutely the first person I would go to. If you're the husband and your wife's been gone for a month and you haven't reported it, you're my suspect right off the bat.
Yeah.
You're the
guy. They don't have a crime. Yeah. They don't have a crime.
Right. That she's just missing. So they let him go. Where did they go from there?
For the time being. Yeah.
How long was it from there until Mark became back into it?
Mark is in Miami, and he's distinguishing himself as a young gung-ho FBI agent there. They love him in the office. Mm-hmm. He's got a big future, but he's being driven sort of crazy with guilt. His story, his wife's story, eventually expects almost day by day that they're going to come and get him. It doesn't happen. That he has to take a lie detector test. Mark figures, well, this is it, and Mark is ready to spill his guts. And he goes home and he tells his wife Kathy, and she goes nuts. You can't do this. You had nothing to do with this. We have to get a lawyer. So they do, in fact, hire a lawyer. But at any rate, Mark takes the lie detector test, and of course he fails.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we now have a real problem. Jim Huggins is now on the scene, and Mark is ready to confess, but he meets Kathy again. The lie detector test was held in Washington, and he had to fly back to Miami, and he meets his wife there, and they're in a Holiday Inn dining room, and she's had a couple of White Russians. He's had, I think, a gin and tonic, and she's frantic because she thinks he's stupid, and she says to him, he says, "Look, this is really big trouble," and she says to him, "Were you sleeping with her?" And she never thought this before. And he says, "Yes."
Mm-hmm.
And she says, and she sort of, the way she explains this, she was almost being snotty. She said, "Did you kill her?" And he said, "Yes." And at that point, she leaps up and clobbers him, and he goes on the floor. But that's when that whole her relationship, everything just fell apart at that point.